My father never asked if I was happy, he only asked how law school was going. For 2 years, I answered with carefully edited versions of the truth. The grades are fine. The workload is heavy, I'm managing. What I never admitted was that every lecture felt like I was watching someone else's future unfold. I wasn't lazy, I wasn't failing. I simply couldn't imagine spending 40 years becoming someone I had never wanted to be. Dropping out wasn't a dramatic decision. It was the slow acceptance that pretending had become more exhausting than disappointing my family. When I finally told my parents, my father stared at me as if I'd confessed to throwing my life away. "You quit?" he asked quietly. "I left because I couldn't keep living someone else's plan." His jaw tightened. "I paid for your education. I know. You embarrassed this family." "I never wanted to." He pointed toward the front door. "Get out." For a second I thought he wanted space, then he added, without raising his voice, "And stay out." My mother looked at the floor. She didn't agree with him. She didn't stop him either. I packed one suitcase that afternoon, no shouting, no dramatic farewell. Just the strange feeling that home had become somewhere I no longer belonged. The next morning I drove west, not to prove anything, not to make a statement, simply because I finally had nowhere I was expected to be except where I chose. 3 years earlier, while studying, I had started building software with two friends from a coding community. I loved programming long before anyone suggested law. Eventually, the company grew beyond us. We hired better people, we made mistakes, we fixed them. When a larger firm acquired the business, I kept a minority ownership stake instead of taking a larger cash payout. Months later, that decision changed everything. My shares were now worth roughly $30 million. Almost nobody outside the company knew, certainly not my family. I had never hidden it to surprise them. I simply wanted at least one part of my life that wasn't measured against my father's expectations. The Malibu house wasn't purchased overnight. It had been under contract for weeks before our argument. Moving in the day after being thrown out was coincidence. An expensive coincidence. The house overlooked the ocean. But what struck me most wasn't the view. It was the silence, no footsteps outside my room, no conversations about what I should become. For the first time in years, silence felt peaceful instead of uncomfortable. 3 weeks passed. I heard nothing from home. Neither side reached out. Then something unexpected happened. A regional entrepreneurship council invited me to speak about building a company while changing career paths. I almost declined. Public attention had never interested me. But the event funded scholarships for students exploring non-traditional careers. That mattered. The auditorium wasn't enormous, but it was full. Before I walked on stage, the council president introduced me. He spoke about the acquisition, the jobs our company had created. The education fund I had quietly helped establish for students who switched degrees after realizing they were on the wrong path. I hadn't expected that part. The audience applauded, not because I had money, because they believed the work meant something. After the talk, people waited to ask thoughtful questions. Some wanted business advice, others simply wanted reassurance that changing direction didn't automatically mean failing. As the crowd thinned, I noticed someone standing near the exit. My father. He looked older than he had 3 weeks earlier, not defeated, just uncertain. For once, he wasn't the man with all the answers. "I didn't know," he said. "I know. You built all of this with a lot of other people." He nodded slowly. "I thought leaving law school meant you were giving up." I wasn't giving up. I looked toward the scholarship banner across the room. I was finally choosing something I could actually give my life to. He followed my gaze. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he said something I had spent years hoping to hear. "I should have asked what you wanted." It wasn't an apology that erased everything. Years don't disappear in one sentence. "I wish you had," I replied. He nodded again. "So do I." We stood there in the quiet lobby while volunteers stacked chairs around us. Neither of us knew what happened next. Maybe we'd rebuild. Maybe we'd always carry some distance. Not every broken relationship returns to what it was. Sometimes it becomes something smaller, sometimes something healthier. When I drove back to Malibu that evening, the ocean looked exactly the same as it had the day I arrived. The difference wasn't the house. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even my father's words. The difference was that I finally understood success wasn't convincing someone else that my life had value. It was building a life that no longer required their permission.